This is our second video for the first 2-week period, and I'm in the second posting, and I'm going down to where can lawyers be found in the legal field. Let me start by saying lawyers sometimes are collectively known as the bar, B-A-R, and there's actually groups of lawyers in voluntary associations known as bar associations. So there's the New York State Bar Association, the American Bar Association, the Erie County Bar Association, and that is something that I think it's good vocabulary for you to know. But when I was looking at this, where can lawyers be found in the legal field, I know back in the day when I was out and about, I could tell you that lawyers also could be found in any number of bars in the western New York area, but that's a different kind of bar. These days, I might add, the only bars I think I see have lettuce and tomatoes on them. But we're talking about where are lawyers practicing law. And practicing law raises a definitional problem or challenge that we'll get to in the second 2-week period. For now, let's just assume we've got people get up in the morning and they go to work and they're licensed attorneys and they're practicing law. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that it's relevant to know where we can find lawyers, because where we find lawyers in these different settings, we're going to find people who are assisting lawyers. In my experience has been assisting lawyers in a very substantial and meaningful way. Those folks are paralegals, and what we could say then is, well, if we're going to find lawyers somewhere, we're going to see that they're hanging out with paralegals. So, back to the lawyers. I have listed, it's a little bit arbitrary, but 4 different categories of places, if you will, where we're going to find lawyers practicing law. And the first one is what I've called public practice. And this is a category where we find attorneys who are practicing law as an employee of some government unit. At the federal level, it could be they're working for the U.S. Department of Justice or a United States Attorney's Office, or perhaps an in-house attorney for one of the federal agencies. At the state level, they could be working at the State Attorney General's office. Each county in New York State has a district attorney who's elected. That's certainly a government unit. And in the district attorney's office, we find all kinds of lawyers, particularly in the more urban areas of the state, such as Erie County. So we've got lawyers out there in public practice, which means that we find paralegals who are employed by the different government units to assist the attorneys. And let me just drop a little footnote and say that these jobs for paralegals, and for the attorneys as well, have some benefits that draw people to them. And the benefits are the benefits, correct? There's a certain job security if you're doing what you need to do. There's usually fair pay, not great pay, but fair pay. There's usually the fringes, so-called, that really are critically important, like health insurance. Typically, there's a humane work schedule, so people are working the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 schedule. So it can be, for many people, a very attractive place to be a lawyer or a paralegal. And one might add that a lot of the lawyers and paralegals would also tell you that they believe that they're working for the public interest. We then have a second category that I've called publicly funded law offices. And these are non-government offices, but the government supports these offices financially. And I'm thinking here of legal aid and public defender offices. And so we have legal aid lawyers, we have public defender offices where we have attorneys working. And again, to follow my theme in those two places, we would find paralegals. And again, the draw to public practice might be similar to what might draw some lawyers and paralegals to work in a publicly funded law office. Job security benefits, and as well the belief that the public interest is being served by what the person is doing as a lawyer or a paralegal. The third category, this might be the category many of you would be thinking about when you think about lawyers. Television shows were lawyers, but on television shows, I guess we have district attorneys. But these are the lawyers who are, if you will, working for themselves. They are in private practice. They're not working for a government or a publicly funded law office. And then, you know, this is a huge universe, because lawyers in this group would be those lawyers who work by themselves, and sometimes those lawyers are known as solo practitioners. Then I sort of have arbitrarily organized lawyers into small firms, medium-sized firms, and large firms. And I suspect the small, medium, and large sense of things will depend upon where a person is living. In central New York, Finger Lakes region, where I come from, if you get outside of Syracuse and Rochester, then you're going to see lawyers who may be 10 in number, and they might be considered in that community a larger office rather than a small office. But this just gives us the sense and the appreciation, by the way, that the large firms have a lot of attorneys and therefore a lot of paralegals. Oftentimes the large firms are in different places, sometimes internationally as well. Large firms might have offices, let's say, in New York, Miami, Los Angeles, and London and Paris. The solo practitioner down the hall from where I work isn't practicing, doesn't have an office in those places, but just goes there on vacation. But in any event, what we might also want to consider, if you're a paralegal, the experience of working for a solo practitioner might be a lot different, even if you're doing the same kind of things, than the experience of working, by way of example, in a large firm, which is going to be perhaps more structured. So that gives us a sense then, maybe a thumbnail sketch sense of private practice. Then I've listed a fourth category that I've entitled or described as in-house counsel. And here we're talking about businesses that have lawyers as full-time employees, large corporations. I'm certain that Apple has, for example, in-house counsel. Public utilities, National Grid has in-house counsel. Public authorities, which aren't technically governmental units like NFTA, have lawyers on staff. One of our terrific adjunct professors works in-house counsel for a real estate development firm, which means then that she's an employee of that particular firm, and as opposed to an employee of a firm in private practice. And again, with the in-house counsel, we're going to see paralegals working in all of those different places. So that gives us a sense, perhaps we could say, of the landscape of where we find lawyers and then where we find paralegals. And in the next 2-week period, we're going to be looking at what I've called an important definition of the practice of law, and more or then adapt as we go forward in the next